Welcome to the Electric Playground. Today on the show, we've got a double dose of RPG action in the rundown.
Plus, I take a closer look at the technology behind the upcoming Guitar Hero Live.
Let's do this!
And then we have a very bloody review of Dark Souls 2, Scholars of the First Sin. Also coming up, we take a look back at Marvel's first Avengers movie to get you ready for Age of Ultron. I get racing in a few high-speed rocket cars and much more today on EP Daily. Brought to you by EB Games. I'm your host, Victor Lucas, bringing you the latest in everything cool every single day. Sometimes it's hard to tell if a yellow item is better than a purple one, but something that's better than all of them is the rundown. Here we go. Nintendo has announced that the JRPG Xenoblade Chronicles X will hit North America and other Western territories this summer. The game comes out in Japan today and features a massive open world that's designed to show off what the Wii U's hardware is capable of. Xenoblade Chronicles X isn't exactly a sequel to Xenoblade Chronicles. It's billed as a spiritual successor with the same kind of combat and emphasis on exploration, but in a completely new world that's more science fiction than fantasy. Another big difference is that players will be able to jump into and control high-tech mech suits, which will make the combat more intense. We'll have more on Xenoblade Chronicles X before it arrives. The first game was just re-released on the 3DS, and you can watch our review of that on EPN.TV. And while we're on the subject of role-playing games, it looks like Warcraft wants to loot the summer box office. Universal and Legendary Pictures have delayed the upcoming film adaptation of the epic fantasy games from March 2016 to June 2016. It's not much of a push, but does put the movie right in the middle of the busy summer blockbuster season, which means the studio must be pretty confident that it will be a hit. Video game adaptations have long struggled to find an audience on the big screen, so we'll have to wait and see if Warcraft can change that. Filming wrapped last year with Moon and Source Code director Duncan Jones at the helm. A lot of epic in the rundown today, and here to help me discuss all that is my pal Marissa Roberto. Are you excited about a Warcraft movie from Duncan Jones? Does this sound interesting to you?
No, just because I'm not into the Warcraft world at all. I don't play a lot of it, and I just feel like I need to devote a lot of my life to it. So because I don't know these characters at all, I'm not sure I can get into.
That's an awesome point, because sometimes it's better to go into these huge hyped up things like this with very low expectations or no expectations, or an expectation to be disappointed, and then everything is completely changed around for you.
Right.
Duncan Jones is an amazing, formidable filmmaker. He's done some really great work, but at a much kind of smaller scale. This is going to be his first foray into something vast and epic and huge, you know.
We'll see. We'll see what it's like. I mean, I'm excited to go with you. I'm sure you and I will be reviewing it. So we'll see. We'll see.
And of course, the other big epic RPG stuff is that Xenoblade Chronicles X is coming to the Wii U. I say Xenoblade and I say Xenoblade.
I say Xenoblade.
Is it okay? Maybe there is no right way.
I am just so impressed with this world completely. I mean, it does remind you of Final Fantasy a lot, and I've never really been into the Final Fantasy world, so jumping into Xenoblade was a challenge for me. But once you do jump into it, you realize how in-depth these characters are and how far they can run. Just this big, huge world for them to go into.
Yeah, the exploration is crazy. And what we're seeing with this generation on Wii U is that, you know, this is Nintendo's first HD console, and it's a pretty powerful machine, you know, as evidenced by a lot of big titles like Mario Kart 8, for example. And this is kind of the first time that Nintendo fans are getting to see these big, huge open vistas and this clarity. Zelda's going to be like that as well. It feels like something to get really excited about.
They put their stamp of approval on it.
Yes.
And I've been enjoying what Nintendo has been churning out for years now. So I'm going to play this with you. I know I am, just like I'm going to see the Warcraft movie with you. So a lot of RPG action in our lives.
Yes, but you know, this looks like a little bit more action-oriented with some cool mech stuff and some cool vehicle stuff. This thing looks absolutely stunning. I cannot wait.
Yeah.
But right now, we've got to peer into the crystal ball a little bit as well for something else that is coming up very soon with new technology. We're talking about Guitar Hero Live, and take a look at how they built all of the live action stuff for this game.
So I'm a huge Guitar Hero fan. I have been for a long time, back to 2005, a very long time ago. And now, of course, we have the live action video in the background. Tell me about the challenge of getting the gameplay woven seamlessly into the live action video.
We changed the gameplay pretty significantly, and I'm sure there's going to be people out there freaking out, but it's really good fun to play, and we wanted to give you a new challenge. So I think, you know, taking that leap to change the gameplay, that was a big deal. But then going from a game developer and then trying to learn how to make movies and turn a camera around, you know, that was pretty cool as well. And we met some great people along the way. We've worked with some great people to get that done, and it's almost like we formed almost another family on this film set for several months while we put all that together. So yeah, I think that was a big challenge. And then 5 years ago, we didn't have so many connected consoles as we do now. It's like a very different place. So trying to come up with something in GHTV that really spoke to that space and it allowed people to, you know, you're going to be able to go and change your music and play music differently. And so that was a big deal too.
Relax, man.
Guys, I need you on stage right now.
Let's do this!
You had to get into this idea of you want to tell a story, right? If you think about kind of the golden ratio in anything, it's this beautiful concept of starting and ending somewhere. So with each song, we just tried to tell a story on stage, but we let that story be led by the lead guitarist of the song. So, you know, if you're into a rhythm section, we wanted you to be in a part of the stage that you might be seeing a bit of a rhythm section, you're interacting with the band a bit more. But then when you step up and you start to hit your solos, we wanted you to be at the front of the stage. We wanted you to be getting like all that crowd reaction. And then if you think about it, like you build all that for the positive, which is actually more straightforward because you just say to the crowd, right, go crazy, we just want you to be into it. But then when you want them to go into the negative, you're trying to tell a totally different story. So you're then actually really worrying about what the crowd are doing. We came up with this idea on set one day about how do we direct the crowd in the negative, and we said, well look, if you've ever broken up with somebody, you know, there's 3 stages of breaking up. There's kind of denial, and then there's sadness, and then there's anger. And we got the crowd to go through those stages through a song. So at the beginning, they were kind of in denial that you were getting it wrong. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? Come on, get this right. And then sort of halfway through, they're like, you're my favorite. Like, why are you doing this? And then at the end, they're like, yeah, what are you doing? And it's freaking out. So it was really interesting.
You know, I think you're missing the 4th stage of a breakup, which is alcoholism.
Yeah, it's going to be PG rated, so we just had to cut that one.
They wanna get my gold on the ceiling.
Tell me, how did you shoot this incredible crowd display here that we're seeing? I mean, all the game is live action video. How did you guys shoot it?
So we used a robot camera was the starting point. So think called a Mocom rig, which is like this giant robot arm that zooms around on the stage, and it kind of does the same move every single time. So that was the starting point. We then built these bands ourselves, so we auditioned band members and brought them in, and then we had between 200 and 400 people in the crowd for each one. And the robot camera, because it does the same thing every time, it means that we could do like a positive pass and a negative pass, and then we'd have green screen behind everything. And to clear the band off stage, we do it all again, but we move the crowd back and move the crowd back. So like the first 5,000 people are all real people. They're just the same 400 people in different outfits and move them around. And then a lot of CG. Are
you in this crowd somewhere, and can you show me where?
I am in the crowd somewhere in a couple of things. A few of us, quite a lot of us actually made some cameos in this, but you're gonna have to spot them when they're in, man. I'm not giving it away.
Guitar Hero Live will come out later this year, and if you want to watch part 1 of Scott's interview about GHL, you can go to our website, epn.tv.
Up next, we've got the real heroes, not Guitar Heroes, the real ones.
Preach on, sister, preach.
That's right, we've got a review of the original Avengers movie after this. Welcome back to EP Daily. Heroes are not born, they're made.
Oh, will you quit saying crap like that?
Okay,
Jeez.
just calm down, Loki. It's time for you and Vic to take a magic carpet ride to 2012 for EP's original Avengers review.
Eisenhower was president back then.
Guys, I'm bringing the party to you.
Possibly the biggest movie of 2012. What'd you think, my friend?
Well, Victor Lucas, I never thought this would work, and boy, do I have egg on my face today. I'm eating a big dish of crow because this more than works. This is an absolutely exciting, thrilling, I'm already out of hyperboles. The Avengers, Victor Lucas, go.
This movie is so good, I feel like crying.
How about that?
Like, it's such a love letter to anybody that's ever read a comic book and been entranced by the storytelling in a comic book. And the thing that this really underlines is how brilliant Marvel and their executives have been at choosing exactly the right people to be involved in every single project. Every movie that they've done since they took over with Ed Norton as the Hulk has really been a stepping stone towards this film. And then giving Joss Whedon, who is the geek kingmeister, the keys to the Avengers was the absolute perfect decision. He is an excellent writer for this movie. He's an excellent director for this film. The framing that he's got, setting up each of the different storylines. I mean, this is spies, soldiers, superheroes, summertime. I mean, this is absolutely incredible comic book movie making.
You know, I stopped realizing that I was even watching a movie.
Yeah.
I was just so pulled into the action.
I mean, hats off to the visual effects people on this movie.
Totally.
You believe the character's flying, you believe the character's falling.
And that's an amazing compliment, one that needs to be paid too, because how many times do we see a movie where the CG just intrudes so much? I didn't think about any of that at all. Not for 1 second did it even occur to me. And there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on screen
painterly
at all times.
It's so beautiful. It's like an Alex Ross version of the Avengers. We're watching it in real time by the perfect actors, perfect performers. Chris Evans is excellent. Chris Hemsworth is excellent. Robert Downey Jr. is excellent. Mark Ruffalo is excellent.
Everybody.
And perfect.
Scarlett Johansson,
I love
excellent.
Clark Gregg, man. Hats off to this guy, you know?
Everything goes away. There's nothing between me and enjoying the hell out of myself.
Well,
I can't even believe how much I enjoyed this movie.
It's the indelible characters. This is a comic book that has come to life on the big screen. This is the most epic and beautiful homage
I can't believe
to the
that
medium.
this works as well as it
I know.
does.
I mean, and this is the thing. This is like
I could still be in there watching it right now.
I want to see it 10 times. This is like a jigsaw puzzle, this impossible one to build, built by a guy
I didn't
that
think it was
completely
possible.
I mean, it is. It's an impossible movie. Somehow, the magic is there, and it's all Whedon. This is an amazing movie.
What I can't believe is that the seams disappear.
Yes.
You don't see the people behind the scenes.
You don't see the costumes.
You don't see the sweat that
Yeah.
went into this. You just enjoy yourself. You get carried away on this wave of entertainment.
There's a reason why these characters have stood the test of time, and that reason is exemplified in this film.
You ready for another bout?
What, you getting sleepy?
I love you, Marvel. I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. What are you giving?
10 for me as well. Double
Unbelievable.
tens. There you go.
Oh, very nice.
You have no idea how hard it is to get a word in edgewise when Vic is so amped. Usually he's here, and that day he was like,
Yeah, he was really amped that day, for sure.
He was amped. And listen, coming up, we steal our nerve, and Vic and I take on the latest game in the Dark Souls series after the break.
Your journey is far from over.
EP's mobile coverage is brought to you by Gameloft, makers of Dragon Mania Legends, which you can play for free right now. This is a pretty cool idea. You're merging a little bit of an endless runner with a kart racing game on mobile. It's free to play. You play it with one hand. You just play it with your thumb, basically, going back and forth. It's called Rocket Cars, and it's a pretty competently made game. I was a little suspicious because one of the big hurdles that you're gonna have to overcome is that, at least the way they set up the controls initially, is you're moving your thumb in the opposite direction that the car is going, almost kind of steering wheel-like. You can also do some tilting, but I find tilting for steering is incredibly difficult. The graphics are okay. It's kind of untextured, rudimentary polygon stuff, but it actually flows pretty quickly, and there's lots of jumps and stunts and things like that that you can do off of ramps. And of course, this is a game that's really trying to get you to stay with it for as long as possible, to buy little extra doodads and things, or you can purchase the ads away and do stuff like that. There are all kinds of customizable options in this thing. You can change the vehicles, you can augment them, you can add extra boosts, you can add extra little power-ups and stuff in there. It's a well-designed game, and I'm surprised that I stuck with it. And I think one of the big hooks is that it does a great job of integrating Game Center and putting up all of the standings of the friends and pals that have been sucked into this game as well, and that's always fun to play against. I'm going to give Rocket Cars a 7.5 out of 10.
Cars plus rockets, those guys are really onto something there. Moving right along, one of the big stories of 2015 so far is the success of Bloodborne on the PlayStation 4. But before Bloodborne, there was, of course, Dark Souls. The latest game in the Dark Souls series, Scholar of the First Sin, is here. Vic and I gird our loins for the review.
Very few indeed have come even this far. And yet your journey is far from over.
Captain Bloodborne and I are here to talk about the precursor to all of this madness. No, it just annoyed me like normal. Yeah. This is called Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin. Now, Dark Souls 2 sounds familiar because that game was released last year, and I think Ben and Jose reviewed it. Jose cried a lot, and Ben tried to calm him down. And then Jose fell in love with the game. It's a vaunted tale around here. But we have finally taken a look at this title. It is another director's cut or another collector's edition, another reissue.
Do-over with extra bonus content, new visuals. Let's give it all a new coat of paint. Even though almost everybody who's interested in video games has already probably played this game, people have been talking about Demon Souls and Dark Souls around the office for as long as I think I've worked here, and everybody is in love with this thing. The only people that are really going to be interested in Scholar of the First Sin are going to be the people who missed the boat the first time around, which is me. I missed the boat the first time around.
And me too. We weren't assigned the review of these titles, and Bloodborne kind of perked our interest, and we just reviewed that one and
more
both
than
fell in love.
perked my interest, it stoked the fires of interest.
And now we've got a look back at one of the best games of 2014 with a bunch of extra content and some manipulation of the assets and the things that you are familiar with to make it feel fresh. It's got a 60 frames per second coat of paint as well, which I think makes a huge difference. Yes. I played a little bit of Dark Souls 2 on PS3. I died a lot. And I played a bit of Dark Souls 2 on the PC. So this was refreshing to see everything up-res, but compared to Bloodborne, it doesn't look anywhere near as good as that.
The controls don't feel quite as sophisticated or as evolved as they do with Bloodborne. I felt like you had a little more movement. I felt a little more acrobatic in Bloodborne, and this feels a little more starched and stiff. That said, Bloodborne for me was the gateway drug to these games. I had so much fun. I haven't finished Bloodborne. I'm trying, everybody. But I've had so much fun with that game that it really makes me want to get back on board in the Dark Souls train and the Demon Souls train and see what everybody else has seen, because now I kind of understand these worlds. I kind of understand the logic of it now. And again, just like in Bloodborne, I was prepared at the start not to really know where I'm going or what I'm supposed to do. And I was okay with that. I was okay with the ambiguity of it.
If you've dabbled at all with Dark Souls 2, you'll notice differences right away too. You'll see giants that are appearing in different spots that weren't there before.
Giants in different spots, right on the box.
Yeah, so if you've memorized everything or if you played through like crazy, this is going to feel a little bit fresh, but it's really like a 1.5. It's just a tweak. But you get all of the DLC that was included with Dark Souls 2 upon its original release, which is a nice extension to everything. I mean, it's a massive amount of content in here and lots of different kinds of cool leveling up, all kinds of fantastic weapons and things that you'll find. All this stuff that you would want out of the best RPGs, but then you add in this element of risking it all to go forward by trying to get to the next bonfire or cashing in the souls that you have to kind of level up by going back to the previous bonfire. I just feel like it's a slower paced experience. It's a little more methodical, and you get right up to the bad guys a lot more.
Bloodborne, I feel like that's my real game, but I'm enjoying this little digression that was made by the same people. It's very exciting to play, and I think if you're interested in this kind of game, if you like difficult games, or you like RPGs, or you like action games, how can you turn away from Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin?
It's also a fiction thing too. I mean, you may not be into the whole gothic horror vibe of Bloodborne and may prefer a kind of traditional RPG that's littered with lots of confusion and lots of things that you don't really understand or appreciate, but that's part of the game design. I think there's definitely room for both of these franchises in your library.
You always make room in your boat.
I always make room in my boat, and I had a blast playing through Dark Souls 2 again. It's an incredible game, and if you missed it the first time, you absolutely got to get out there and get this thing. I'm giving it a 9.5. How about you?
This gets a 9 from me. Well, that was kind of humbling. And up next, Twitter lands on today's episode of EP after this.
If you want more EP, go to our website, epn.tv, for bonus content and full episodes. We're also on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to the Electric Playground. It is time now for our Twitter question of the day, and this one is from V Texan at V Texan, asking, how well does Daredevil handle disability issues? And that's a pretty complicated question because
Yeah, well, it's a complicated question because we don't suffer from a disability, so it's tough for us to answer, but I think it's really intriguing. I like that we're actually seeing a superhero with a disability.
I think it's really important that that kind of stuff bubbles up in popular culture for sure, and it's also important, Netflix, I know, responded to making this show available to people that are vision impaired, which I thought was really admirable. And I thought that made a lot of sense with this property in general. I think Charlie Cox does a pretty good job at convincing us that he's blind. And it's a little weird though, because as soon as nobody's looking, he throws away the cane and is able to jump and leap.
It's true. And then, I mean, of course they do explain that Daredevil just sees a world on fire. So he can actually see, but just not the way you and I would see. So it's just, I don't know, it's tough to say if they handle it correctly or not. I guess we wouldn't really be the people to answer that.
I just think it's awesome that we have a hero with a disability that's so front and center like that. Great question. If you want to ask us any other questions or get caught up on full episodes of the show and a whole lot more, go to epn.tv.
We've got more coming for you in an upcoming episode of EP Daily, including a review of Lost Within.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
EP would like to thank its sponsors, Nintendo, Xbox.
This is brought to us by the same people that made Prey. I don't know if you remember that game, but it came out quite a while ago, and not a lot of people played it, but it was actually a really great game. And I'm jumping into something like this, though, feeling as though I've played this game before. Nothing is unique or exciting about this one. We are in an asylum that's been abandoned. Okay, we've seen that before. There's a creature that's running about.
Is there an old wheelchair?
Is there an old wheelchair?
Yeah, there are some old wheelchairs.
There is
all these games, there's so many old wheelchairs in games. We've seen them before in movies and video games. I'm calling for a ban on old wheelchairs going forward. That's it, no more.
I am calling for a ban on abandoned asylums, just all together, because it's too much, and it's usually a character that shouldn't be in there, of course, and this is character, this cop that's in there, he's radioing to dispatch, saying that he needs to do this and that, even though he shouldn't be in there at all. Why are you in there, bro?
What hit me?